Let's move to this discussion now. So the Gauteng ANC is continuing with its push for Sandton Drive to be renamed after Palestinian activist Leila Khaled. The American Consulate in Sandton is located on that same street. But let's have a discussion now. And for that, we're joined by Gauteng ANC's Thuthukile Zuma. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Talk to me about why this is an important discussion now.
Good evening, Naledi. Good evening to the viewers at home. It's actually REC, so regional ANC, Thuthukile, but of Gauteng, of course. Yes, indeed, Gauteng and Johannesburg supports the council decision that was taken in 2018 to rename Sandton Drive to Leila Khaled Drive. We supported it in 2018, and we support it now, and we've actually been running a campaign for council in the city of Joburg to implement that council resolution.
Why?
Well, I think much like then and now, we've always supported the plight of the people of Palestine. We've always really prioritized solidarity work. And it just so happens as well that this year we're coming up on a year on the genocide in Gaza that started last year and continues. And we come from a history of apartheid. And even the ICJ has declared the settlements, illegal settlements, and it's an apartheid state. And so if South Africa, who has experienced almost like a mirror in their history, and the world stood with us during those dark days, they campaigned, they did rallies, they mobilized, international solidarity work was done so that Nelson Mandela could be free and the end of apartheid could come, and it did. And so we need to make sure as South Africans that we return the favor. It wasn't just done by people of the world. It was also done by Palestinians who were at that time also fighting their struggle. The PLO and the ANC have a very special relationship. We were brothers in arms. They stood by us and supported us in our struggle, and it's very important that we do the same for them in theirs.
Yeah, I do want to ask this though. So changing a name in Sandton to that of a Palestinian freedom fighter and activist, right? What does that actually do for the greater struggle for the people of Gaza?
So I think importantly with international solidarity work is to keep the struggle and the consciousness of people alive to the fact that the people of Gaza are undergoing a genocide, and Palestinian people have been displaced and are illegally occupied and suffering apartheid, an apartheid state at the hands of the Israeli Zionist regime. And what's important about international solidarity work is to keep that narrative alive in people's minds so that people do what they need to do, whether it be pressurizing their governments, pressurizing companies that are supporting the Israeli apartheid state, making sure that they send aid to the children and the women in Gaza. If we don't talk about it, if we don't put it in the everyday life and the faces of ordinary people, of governments, of businesses, then the work won't get done. So it's part of the mobilizing about, educating people about the plight of the Palestinians, but also keeping their cries alive and loud in the ears of all South Africans and all people around the world.
Yeah, it's an interesting street though, isn't it? Sandton Drive is essentially the road where you do also have the American Consulate stationed in Sandton. And in fact, one political analyst, I think it's Sunette Solomon, has been quoted as saying that for U.S. relations with South Africa, this is a bad idea.
Well, I think it's only interesting because the Americans are funding the Israeli army. That's what makes it interesting. And that's what we stand diametrically opposed. We don't believe that we should be funding an apartheid state and a military regime that is oppressing people to the extent of genocide and extermination and famine. If you look at the news every single day at what is going on in Gaza, if the people who supported Israel stopped supporting Israel in terms of with military aid and personnel and resources, the genocide would not be happening. So the reason why you say that it's interesting that Sandton Drive is where the consulate is located, it's only interesting because of the bad behavior of America in relation to the state of Israel and the manner in which they oppress the people of Palestine.
Okay, you've got the Democratic Alliance obviously having come out, and they are against this idea. In fact, last month, the D having said that they went into Sandton and ran, I suppose, speaking to some of the residents in the area, getting consultation with them, and what they've come to is over 4,000 respondents that they spoke to in the area of Sandton objected to this name change. Only 285 are in support. So you'd still want to do this knowing or hearing that the Democratic Alliance, as the people of Sandton, don't want this?
Let's be clear, the legal mandates to do public participation lies with the City of Johannesburg. That public participation is currently ongoing. Submissions closed in October, and the city has not yet submitted any sort of report indicating how that public participation went. So I can go to this building, Newzroom Afrika, and start asking, are you in favor, are you not? That means nothing. The City of Joburg, as per their legal mandate, are the ones who are entrusted with the public participation process, and we trust that process, and we're awaiting for them to give a report and to implement their decision.
Yeah. The Democratic Alliance, once again, though, their MP, I think it's Leila Khaled, though, did raise some concern with that public participation process, saying that they want to see an audit of the petitions in support of the name change, concerned that this may not perhaps not everything is above board.
Yeah, they should raise that concern with the city, but also remember the Democratic Alliance raises concerns about anything that is progressive and transformative, whether it's affirmative action, whether it's the NHI, whether it's the Bella Bill more recently, anything that seeks to transform South Africa and ensure that we redress the injustices of the past. The Democratic Alliance has been consistent in raising concerns and objecting to that. So we're in no way surprised that they would have an issue with us naming a South African street after a woman freedom fighter of Palestine who has the respect of peace-loving, progressive world who stand with the plight of the people of Palestine. We're not surprised that the DA is opposed because generally that's how they behave. Well, and so it would be surprising if they supported it.
I'm sure you're expecting this question because any time in this country we talk about name changes, people go, that's an expensive exercise, that money could be spent elsewhere. To that you say?
Yeah, to that I say, look, South Africa has many challenges, right? And we need to prioritize and address those challenges. By and large, at this very moment, economic challenges around unemployment, around economic inactivity of young people, of women, economic exclusion of young people and women, that is a priority of the ANC. But because that is our priority, it does not mean that we must entirely forget about our heritage. We must not ensure that we educate our people, and our streets must reflect ourselves as a people, and we must have pride in them. Should we have not renamed OR Tambo because there was unemployment? So the two are not mutually exclusive. They go together. A priority of the ANC has always been on the economic issues. Even when we were campaigning, our manifesto was very clear on the economic issues, but it doesn't mean that as a nation we cease to exist, our history ceases to exist, our heritage, our culture, and our beliefs. Those are also important and should be attended to, but we mustn't neglect our priorities. So the two are not mutually exclusive.
Okay, I want to talk about the way forward then, where you guys are going to take this. There are reports at the moment that the Sports, Arts and Culture Minister, Gauteng McKenzie, says that he's not received a proposal to rename Sandton Drive.
Yeah, so Sandton Drive that's the purview of the council of the City of Johannesburg. I know the minister is new, so that's fine. He'll find his feet, and he probably won't make such comments once he's found his feet. But this is a council resolution, and that power rests with the City of Johannesburg Council. Much like we renamed William Nicol, Winnie Mandela Drive, and that was definitely a ANC campaign that we did successfully. This is much like that. The Minister of Sports nationally doesn't really have a critical role to play in that regard, but he'll find his feet, and that's okay.